tonight. Mary Pickford, who is the administrator for Lincoln County, and Tim Richardson, who is the supervisor at Lincoln County Recycling. And they very kindly consented to spend some time with us this evening, responding to some questions we had. How would you like to do this, Terry?
This is your meeting, so I'll yield to you.
Okay, I mean, we can just go through each question in the order in which we presented them and go from there. And if people have questions about the response, they can raise their hands and we'll deal with it right then and there.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so there's some demographic questions. How many Lincoln County towns actively recycle through Lincoln County Recycling?
That's 14.
14.
14 of the 19.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, good. 14 of the 19.
14 of the 19. Okay. And how many towns collect and sell their own recycling?
The Booth Bay transfer station that we know of. Wiscasset does sell some cardboard, but the remainder of the recycling comes through us.
Is there a way of turning the volume
Up.
Yeah, up. Yeah, way up.
You can't hear it very well.
Thanks. All right. And you used to have special contracts with some towns outside Lincoln County. You still have
do. We have 5.
5?
Pittston, Warren, Windsor, Tri-County, and Georgetown. Tri-County also includes the town of Somerville, and Somerville is one of the 14 towns in Lincoln County.
Right.
I've got a question.
Yes.
What are the tri-counties?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
I think one of them is Union, isn't it?
I believe it's located in Union. Tim, do you know?
I think it's located in Washington, isn't it? John?
No, that's
Is it
Union.
Union?
That's Union.
That's right. It's off 17.
That's correct. Yeah, off to the left. Yeah. Okay, so that's the one. Okay.
We know it then.
Yep.
How does Lincoln County Recycling calculate the tipping fee it charges the towns outside of Lincoln County? And what is that tipping fee?
We do not charge a tipping fee. We have a very complex calculation that's been developed over the last 3 years, I believe it was. We count the miles round trip to each location, the gas mileage for the vehicle that we take. We count which vehicle we take each time. We count the volume of their materials, how much revenue it generates, the amount of man hours it takes to get to the facility, load, unload, and get back to our facility. What else am I? There's an administrative fee that's intended to capture the capital cost of the vehicles that we use. And each one of those is different based on the location and the volume and how full their bins are. So if we're making trips to, I'm just going to pick one, let's say we're going to Warren, and if they call us to pick up their bins and they're not full, that factors into the calculation because we're going there more often for less volume of materials. Before we had that calculation, we used to charge a per capita. Per capita doesn't capture the actual cost when you compare a place like Pittston to a place like Georgetown. If their per capita was identical, their contract cost would be identical, but Pittston is a lot closer to us than Georgetown. So we needed to make sure that we were capturing the true cost of serving each of those facilities.
And do you know how many Lincoln County towns recycle with Equal Maine?
None that we know of.
Tim, do you know of any?
None. None that we know of at all.
Okay. And other than Cushing, Waldeboro, and Friendship, how many recycle with, when they're back up and running? Coastal Resources of Maine.
Recycle or used for waste?
Recycle.
Well, none that we know of,
I mean,
Okay.
because Waldeboro, Wiscasset, and Booth Bay each source separate recycle.
yes.
So if you have recyclables in your waste, and it's getting recycled, that's a different type of service altogether.
Sorry, I misspoke when I asked the question. We don't recycle. The 3 towns in our group do not recycle with Coastal Resources of Maine. They recycle with you.
The same would hold true for Wiscasset and similarly for Booth Bay Peninsula, because they're doing a similar arrangement. They just sell their own, they bale and sell their own materials.
Any other questions you'd like to ask on this topic before we move on to the next one?
No.
Okay. Some questions about cost. The LCR website says that LCR saves its participating communities more than $1 million a year in tipping fees.
So
What are the-
it's an outdated number that was developed back when plastic was in full swing and the market was a lot more generous than it is today. And we have not updated that in the last couple of years. But when we did calculate that, it was based on a $25 per ton tipping fee and a trucking cost between $125 and $218 per load, using an approximate 9 ton per load uncompacted volume. Those numbers came to us through Casella, who is our broker, and they're very knowledgeable in the area, so they knew a lot of these costs. We were challenged in the past trying to get these costs from individual transfer stations, because whoever answered the phone wouldn't necessarily be the person that knew all of the true costs of all of those. So we went to one source so that we could get something uniform that we could measure against multiple locations. So if I had to give you a number today where that savings is, I would say that it's closer to a $700,000 savings, but it is still a significant savings to the towns based on their volumes of recyclables and the amount of tipping fee they would have to pay plus the transport costs.
If your own tipping fee were to be imputed, in other words, if you were, instead of collecting the stuff from us for nothing and taking it and selling it, if you were to impute a tipping fee to the companies, the towns that participate from Lincoln County with Lincoln County Recycling, what would the imputed tipping fee be for what we send to you?
And we would not be able to give you an imputed tipping fee because we don't have a scale. We can't weigh the materials that we pick up from you. So to charge you a per ton tipping fee is impossible for us.
Okay, we have a scale. I guess a lot of the other towns don't.
Yeah.
Okay, and you don't have one?
No.
I have a question.
Yes, Monica.
But if they don't have a way to calculate the per ton transport, but they're using it in some calculation though, on number 7, aren't you referencing a per ton transport?
We measure by volume of what's in the can. So we know how much a full can will hold in yards. And then we have an average calculation based on a full can yardage, how many tons that would represent. So the numbers that we come up with are very much estimates based on volume and not actual weight. But if I were going to charge any facility a tipping fee, I can't base it on an estimate. I have to have a true weight because it would be unfair to either party to try to come up with some kind of a charge based on a volume estimate.
Thank you.
Welcome.
questions about costing and so forth. Ready?
I do have one in regard to what you were just talking about. Those of us who do have scales, like Booth Bay has scales. What's the next one up here? Noblesboro. Noblesboro, they have scales. We have scales. Those of us who have scales, could you compute something with us?
Well, each calculation would have to be different based on location. And what do I do about those locations that don't have scales? So now I'm going to charge a tipping fee to a transfer station based on a true weight. And then for those that don't have scales, it's an estimated weight. And I'm going to circle back to what's the purpose of having a tipping fee to charge the town in the first place? Is it so that it's a more accurate cost of recycling, or?
Yes, more consistently, it's more consistent, and it's a more accurate cost. Those who do not have scales, I mean, you would just continue to determine it the way you do now.
So I can't charge some towns on their tax commitment based on their county taxes and others a tipping fee. If we're looking for something more accurate, I'm making it even more inaccurate by that process.
I guess,
I don't understand what's driving the question in the first place, so that I can't fully comprehend where we're going with it.
It's just that we're used to using scales to determine, you know, how it's dealt with.
I'd go a different direction with that. I guess I would ask the question to compare it with the value that Lincoln County is getting from the operation.
Oh.
I mean, we could take it, not that we want to, we don't, but we could take it to EcoMaine where they charge a tipping fee, or we could take it up to Coastal Resources where they charge a tipping fee for recyclables. It's $35 a ton, plus transportation. That gives one an accurate per ton comparison that we can't make right now. And it just sort of, it's one way, I guess, of keeping everybody honest and focused on what we're trying to do. That's all.
Sure, okay, that gives me a better perspective. Thank
I
you.
think that's a valid question. All right. Any other questions on costs? Okay. The next category
So
is,
can I interject there?
yes,
I know that this would take an entire year to do, but if it would be beneficial to make that true estimate, if you wanted our trucks to weigh in on your scale in and out, and then you could keep track of it, we could then come up with a true volume based on weight. And then we could compare that to the percentage of your county tax bill that goes towards recycling department. And then you could do a per ton tipping fee that way to
Okay.
compare the 35 or whatever the EcoMaine cost is. Plus, then you would have, we could come up with some kind of a way to estimate how many yards so that you could then calculate a transportation cost, but it would take you an entire year of well, maybe I don't know how much volume, how much your volume changes seasonally. But even a full month, I mean, if you wanted to compare apples to apples, that would be a way of doing it. If you have a scale.
I thought we were weighing the trucks that go in and out, aren't we?
We do, we weigh the trucks and weigh them out.
So we have the weights for your trucks coming in and going out.
Okay, so then you know how much your volume is.
Tim's got them. Should have.
Not volume, your weight, not
The weight, right.
weight.
So am I understanding correctly then, John, that we could run that number here? We could figure it out and let Carrie know what we've got?
And I can tell you your portion of your tax bill is represented by Lincoln County Recycling. That's an easy calculation for us to do.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's worth doing that exercise just to see how we come out. Monica?
I think this is a worthwhile endeavor just to pursue. Over the years, as we've been trying to tell our town citizens what their efforts are worth, we were not actually able to do it in an accurate way when we were building the enthusiasm for recycling. We never had a number that could be clear to explain the rewards that they were getting for their efforts. And this might just be an indication that now we could have a number that we could give people should they question. Although this was now many years ago when we were still trying to convince people to recycle, but things have improved. Nevertheless, I think it's nice when people have something, a number in their head that they can say, yes, look what we've saved the town.
Any other? Sorry, Tim.
Just remember, from season to season, right in the summertime, you're gonna be at max capacity. And then come fall and winter, it's gonna go right downhill.
Yep.
So it's really not gonna be complete from one season to the other.
So you're saying a 12-month period of looking at it is really what we need to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, we have that information, right? Yeah, we have the information for years, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
we can share that then.
Sure.
All right.
2 years, 3 years.
3
Okay,
years.
Good,
Okay.
okay.
So I think we're ready to go on to the next one. How do you rank each recycled material from highest to lowest as a contributor to Lincoln County recycling revenues using December 31, 2020 as a cutoff date?
So this past year, cardboard was our number one. Number two, natural plastic was our number two. Newspaper was number three. Number two, colored plastic was number four, and compost was number five. And it was changed annually, but cardboard is historically our number one. And a lot of that has to do with volume. We have a lot of recycled cardboard. So it's not necessarily because prices fluctuate up and down, although that is part of the change, but volume has a lot to do with this. So keep in mind how much cardboard ends up in your own recycling pile at home.
Yeah.
I just looked, I got rid of mine on Saturday and I already have a pile of cardboard, but I have a small bag of cans and a small bag of bottles. So that's what drives our cardboard number.
And I'm guessing that COVID has really influenced the amount of cardboard we're all getting and dealing with.
Yes, indeed.
Monica, did you have a question?
Yes, many years ago, cardboard was getting $125 a ton. Do you have an idea of what it is about now?
I just got a new report. I can tell you that. I can't tell you that. I have the total amount. Okay, the report I got from January has it right at about $80 a ton.
And is there any indication that you've received as to why the price per ton has gone down recently, or whether the trend is level?
If I had to venture a guess, and that's all it would be, is because there's so much cardboard in the market, there's more supply. So there's less demand for it overall because of the supply. Now, I'll share with you, we have a Casella contract that gives us an additional $5 per ton premium because we only sell our cardboard to Casella and they can count on us to have materials to flow into the market instead of them relying upon organizations contacting them to sell it. They know that we have it sitting there waiting for them when they need to fill the void in their supply chain. So we've gotten an extra $5 per ton the last 3 years from them over what market is.
Thank you. So I guess the next question has been answered, and that is your most important customer for the recycled materials must be Casella.
It is.
And that's across the board for all of them, with probably the exception of the compost.
Compost, glass, and
And metal,
mixed metals.
mixed metals, yep.
We can't bale that, so it's something that we sell locally.
And the mixed metals are sold locally as well?
We sell glass
Mhm.
and mixed metal locally.
Okay. Any questions from anybody here at the table or on Zoom?
Actually,
Monica?
I just referring back to the cardboard premium, is that then allocated to the towns, or is that $5 premium absorbed by Lincoln County in another category?
All revenue that we generate as a result of all sales goes towards Lincoln County recycling revenue line on the county budget.
Okay, thank you.
It's a decrease of cost to the department. So if you have a net budget amount, it's decreased by the net revenues.
When you sell the materials to Casella, is it FOB Wisconsin or do you pay for the freight?
No, it's FOB Wisconsin, and that's written right into our contract.
It's on their truck then, they come and pick it up?
Mhm.
Yep, okay.
In fact, Casella, because we have a contract with Casella, they have a trailer that is parked at our facility that allows us to store baled product in the trailer. It gives us an extra 43 feet or however long that trailer is of storage space of baled products ready to go. So we can load the trailer with the bales as we create them. When the trailer is full, we call Casella, they come in, they swap the trailer, give us an empty.
Okay. So part of the operation is to use your baler to bale the cardboard and the mixed paper, I guess, and I suppose the number 2 plastic as well. Are
Yeah.
all of those baled?
Newspaper, mixed paper, number 2, natural number 2 color,
We do bale tin too,
and
Right.
rigid.
and rigid plastic.
And are the rigid plastics, the tins and the glass, and the compost all sold locally? All of those, or is,
Rigid plastic is baled and sold to Casella.
oh, okay,
Tin is baled and sold to Casella. Our mixed metals are loose and sold locally. It's things like filing cabinets and
Washing machines.
washing machines and things that just aren't tin cans that Casella doesn't really want. It goes to a scrapyard.
any other questions on that issue? All right. The next questions concern efficiency. And I don't know if you can answer this or not, but if you were to compare the Lincoln County recycling communities with one another in tons or by volume, which one is the best recycler and which one is the worst recycler?
Yeah, I cannot create that statistic for you because each facility is different. I'll give you an example. The Nobleboro Transfer Station collects for Newcastle, Nobleboro, Jefferson, Damascotta,
And Bremen.
and Bremen, thank you. So they're obviously going to have high volumes. How much of that volume came from Bremen?
Right.
It's hard to say.
Yep.
Just like to us, Waldoboro Transfer Station is Waldoboro, but it doesn't just represent Waldoboro, it represents Friendship and Cushing. Because they're not towns in Lincoln County and we don't have a contract with those 2 towns, they have an arrangement with Waldoboro. It artificially inflates the Waldoboro numbers by those 2 towns. So this is not a comparison that we've ever done, and it's not really something that we would be able to do.
Hard to do.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is the decisions that you make for your transfer station are based on what your town needs, what your town wants, what your select board decides is right for your town. And not all towns have that same they don't all have the same capacity. They don't have the same local support. Some are stronger than others. And some of them don't have a strong oversight within the facility once it's operational. So trying to make a comparison like that really, I can't say that this one is better than that one. It's all different.
So having a contest wouldn't work, would it?
No, not for me.
No,
We'll help towns however we can to improve if they're looking for assistance. Absolutely, we're on board to help with that. But trying to say that you're better than your neighbor's transfer station is just going to make me look like the villain to your neighbor when they're doing the best that they can.
Yeah, I get it. So the other question is quality. What can this transfer station do, Cushing, Friendship, or Waldeboro do to improve the quality and marketability of the recycled materials you get from us?
Yeah, what you can do is make sure that the items that are in the cans are what belongs in the cans. So when we pick up a newspaper can, make sure it's newspaper that's in there. When we show up to pick up a can, that's the beginning of our involvement. We get a call saying the can's full. We show up. If the can's not full of newspaper, then it's a problem for us. Now, if that's one piece of material that doesn't belong in there, that's not a big deal at all. But if it's 20% of what's in there, it becomes a problem for us. And yes, we have seen that in loads that we pick up at Waldeboro. It's historically, every transfer station has this problem. Unless you have an attendant standing at the can while people are putting their product in there and they look at what's going into the can, it will be contaminated. It's not intentional. People they're not putting their garden hoses in the newspaper can because they want to follow the newspaper can. They're doing what they know. They're doing the best that they can. And unless you have somebody that knows all of the rules and stands there and watches them and polices what goes in the can, it'll get contaminated.
Do you get docked for contaminated materials?
Yes. We have had loads that have been contaminated to the point where they've been refused once they were received at the buyer. And then we either had to pay to have them open up all of those bales and remove the contaminants, or we paid to have them shipped back to us to have us open up the bales and remove the contaminants, or we paid to have them put into a landfill. So we want those bales as clean as possible. How you get your folks to do that, I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah, Monica?
I'm just wondering, I don't think I've ever seen any signage on the bins that say only this in there. So if people are gathering their newspapers in their recycling bin in a plastic bag and they toss that plastic bag into the bin, I understand what you're saying is a contamination. So we may need to increase our signage at the bins, maybe a magnetic sign or something like that, that says, do not, drop the plastic bags in along with your newspaper, or some clarification, because I have wondered that myself, because I look in the bins and I see plastic bags, that it just it's common sense because that's how people are transporting it, but they might not know that is endangering the quality of the product.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sorry.
and a little more hands-on at the stations is a great trait too, because, then the people see that the attendants are doing more, so that might just conduct them to do a little more too. But learning and being taught is a great tool.
And don't think that this is unique to Waldeboro. Every transfer station that we pick up at has the same issue. This
Yes.
is not a unique situation. Some
Yes.
are better, some are not. It gets worse in the summertime, but our volumes go up in the summertime. And you have more people that aren't here year round. So they're applying the rules from where they live the rest of the year to what they're doing
Yes.
here. And it's good intentions, it's bad habits.
Well, and
Pictures help.
I think clarification is the critical thing, that people need to be reminded in a nice way on a regular basis. So I think that's a very good clarification. And I think it's something that our committee could well carry out. So,
We have magnetic signs up in it. We even have them on barrels. It says clear glass, tin cans, plastic bins over 20 feet over. People still come in and throw it in different areas. If we really want it to work, we need a taser. Really,
Need a what, John?
a taser.
Yes, he's right. You do.
Pictures help.
And time and
Pictures do.
time again, people will come in, the attendants will say that doesn't go in there. As soon as they turn around to go do something else, they still throw it in.
They throw it in.
Yeah.
Oh, the problem for individuals and haulers have all of this pretty well figured out, so it's individuals that are doing it.
Correct. I mean, I will say, I even miss stuff sometimes, like if I have somebody that gives me a whole handful of newspaper and there's mixed paper in between the newspaper that I don't see, I mean, it happens. It gets mixed up, you know, you try to do the best you can, but there is people that just, they don't care enough to separate it out. So they just, you know, they're told it doesn't belong there, but they still throw it in there anyway.
Yeah.
I read somewhere where it said caps, bottle caps or covers, they're contaminants. Is that correct? Yeah, that was a new thing to me.
Sorry, what was the answer? The question was, are caps contaminants?
Caps on the jugs,
Caps to bottles?
bottle
The
caps.
gas jar,
Yes.
Even though they're the same number.
No, you gotta separate them. That's why we have bins. We have bins underneath there. Matter of fact, this has been going on ever since we've opened Ramsey, that we separated the caps.
Well, that's an
So it's not new. That's why them bins are there for people. Yeah. There's a lot of people were taking the caps off and throwing them in there separate. These guys come in with a compactor to get it. You know, the milk jugs and all that, so. But that's always been the way, so. Since the early 80s, Randy, middle 80s.
So I want to clarify if I could, Tim, what's the rule here? What do you want your customers to do with caps, bottle caps?
The caps on the glass jars.
Not just glass jars, I'm talking caps on milk bottles, on everything.
Anything plastic.
Because the plastic cap isn't necessarily, or the metal cap, the plastic cap isn't necessarily the same kind of plastic that the bottle is.
They should be thrown, the caps should be thrown away, and the caps, the metal caps that are on the glass should go in with the tin, yes.
So the metal caps on glass go in the metal bin,
Yes.
right? And the
Milk
plastic
jug
caps,
cover- Yep, milk jug covers, you know, your covers on your laundry detergent bottles, they should be taken off and thrown away.
in the trash.
And
that's
that's
trash.
yes.
All right.
It's a different
can't-
number of plastic.
I can't believe how many years we've been doing this, and you look in the bin and everybody's got their cap on there.
Yep.
How could we have not known that?
We did know that. Like I said, we've been doing it since we've been open. That's
Right.
why the two little bins in front of the containers are there. You can talk to people and tell them, and they're just gonna throw it in there anyway.
It don't sink in.
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes I think you guys ought to have a chance, come out and we'll work you on a weekend.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
See what it's,
Fair enough.
you know,
Come on over to the center.
Pictures,
yeah.
Yeah.
pictures really do help.
Very much so, yes.
I'm a visual person. I am, my husband is standing here and he will tell you I'm a terrible recycler, but pictures when I go to our transfer station in Noblesboro, pictures help. And I'm one of those former people from away. And I know that makes me still from away. And I look in the bin to see what other people have done. So then I just repeat stupidity.
Mhm.
Yes.
So pictures, actual pictures of what's supposed to be in the bin. I think that's something that we should do. And it's something we can do to make our transfer station attendants' lives much easier. And I'm sure Will and Eli will be very happy to have pictures on the bins.
And we could do something in the towns so that it's easier for our haulers to.
Yeah.
I don't know how we distribute them though.
All right, that's good. That's good feedback. Thank you very much.
Hmm.
Just a note to people sitting at the table, when you rustle your papers or rustle up, it picks up on the microphone, and people watching on YouTube cannot hear a thing. So try not to rustle stuff around when you're sitting on your chairs in the room. Okay,
He didn't hate it, Bob. He was wrestling his paper.
yeah, Randy,
I heard.
did you hear me?
I heard. I'm finding, I've got pictures and I don't see anything you're talking about in my pictures.
Well, we'll work on that. We've got our marching orders here. We know what we need to do, so we'll do it. So I guess we've talked about the efficiency part of it. Plastics recycling. And this is something that's become really important to, I think, all of us, including you folks who are visiting us tonight. It's so frustrating not to be able to see especially the number one, plastics are being recycled, because we know that in other states, they are being recycled and they're being purchased. And in fact, there is a lack of supply for number one bottles in many places in the country. And yet in Maine, for some reason, we can't seem to get them out of the waste stream and into the recycling stream. Is there anything we can do?
So part of the reason why we don't have number ones, and I have one right here, this represents 5 cents. Part of the reason we don't have supply of number ones is because they go back. People get their nickel back. It's only part of the reason. The other part of the reason is this is a number one, but so is the clamshell container that I buy my lettuce in. And so is a lot of other clear plastics. And when they go from my house to my recycle bin to the recycle center, they all say number one. So how do I tell people, well, that number one we like and that one we don't like? So we tried that back in 2018. We tried it. We tried it at multiple transfer stations, and it lasted a few months. Whitefield is one of our strongest recyclers. That's all that their station does is recycling. They don't do waste that goes up to Hatch Hill. And our strongest recycler told us, come get your bins. We can't make this work. It was so hands-on for them, it wasn't worth the effort. And I don't know about you, but my trifocals, trying to look at these numbers are really hard. So I sometimes have a plastic that looks like a number one, but it's really a number 5. So the number 5s that make it in the bin with the number ones is a contaminant. Even if I want it to recycle, doesn't matter how much I want it to recycle, it's still a contaminant. And if I don't have a 98% bale, 2% contaminant is what I'm allowed in that bale. So out of 100 of these bottles, only 2 of them can be wrong before I'm docked. That's why we can't do number ones. It's so hands-on, and it's so it's very labor intensive, and it's very hard to get it right.
You have a sense of why other states can?
Some states have MRFs, and a MRF is a plant that has optical scanners, and it has people standing at the machinery and sorting. We don't have that. We have a dark facility that's a bin or a pile that we dump our trucks onto the floor, and it's just this mountain of recyclables. So right now we're wading through the pile, hand picking contaminants out of the pile for the number 2 plastics, and it's impossible for us to do that in number ones.
Thank you.
Trust me, I hate throwing my plastics in the trash.
Yeah.
It is just heartbreaking to me. I grew up with recycling. We tried doing the number fives because number five seemed like a stronger product for us to be able to hand sort the tubs and lids. They're like yogurt containers, the big yogurt containers or margarine containers, and we
Mhm.
still couldn't make those work. So until we can have some kind of a product that is mixed together, I don't know how to come out of this.
Or everything a number two. That would be nice.
Make everything a number two. I
Yes.
don't know that that'll happen.
Do we have a price for number one and number two plastics, current market price for those?
I have the most recent one that you provided me for number one. We don't have a contract for number one, so I don't have the market. But the number that you gave me was $136 a ton for number one.
That was in Vermont, yeah.
Right. So then the most recent number two we had, number two natural, is $1,320 a ton.
Wow.
That's your milk jugs, your clear milk jugs, not your white milk jugs. And
No,
then-
wait, you said that's not, the white is in the colored? The
Non-
white milk?
White milk jug is colored,
Okay,
but a natural milk jug is natural.
okay, and it's $1,321 a ton?
Yes.
1,320.
Wow,
Color is $326 a ton. That's what it was most recently that I looked at.
mhm.
So I guess that kind of leads into the next question, and we touched on it just a minute ago, and that is how can we discourage the use of number three through number seven plastics, other than just not buying the products that are in them?
Stop packaging it in number 3 through 7 plastic. One of the other things that I forgot to tell you with this, it's not just lettuce containers. I have, the plastic packaging that goes around a cardboard box. Like my cat gets this medicine. So the medicine's in a cardboard box and then it's clamshell sealed in, but you need scissors to cut it out. Those are number ones. Stop buying products that are sealed in that. And the only way we're going to stop buying it is if it's manufactured without it. I sat up in Augusta last year all day long waiting my turn to testify in support of the bill that was up there to make the manufacturers pay a price of the what is it called, an act to support and increase the recycling of packaging. All day we sat up there. There were so many people there to testify on behalf of this bill. We had 3 overflow rooms of people sitting waiting to testify. And by the end of the day, I finally gave up waiting and I submitted my testimony on paper. But it was encouraging to see that there were so many people out there looking for change. It wasn't just us. It was towns. It was the local municipalities really frustrated with paying to throw this stuff out. So back to my example of the cat medicine, it comes in a little tiny vial. There were 3 tiny vials that were inside of another package that was foil sealed inside of the box, inside of the clamshell that was shipped to me inside of an Amazon box, all for less than an ounce of fluid. How much packaging do we really need on all of this stuff? And it's the only way to buy this. I mean, I couldn't just go to a local veterinary supply and buy a couple little ounces in a jar. It wasn't an option for me. But if it was manufactured in a different way and packaged in a different way, then maybe we have a chance then. And
We share your frustration.
Yeah. Can I ask?
Monica?
Do you know what the outcome was after the testimony? Has it gone back to committee, or it hasn't come for a vote that I'm aware of, right?
It was almost, I want to say it went through the work session, but they did not vote on it and it stalled because of COVID. This was last
Mhm.
January or February last year. So it was, how did they say, it was carried over. I haven't seen it come back to life yet in this session. The last count as of earlier today was 590 some bills that are printed. I'm expecting to see another 1,500 of them. That's how many we saw last session. If this will come back through, I'll submit more testimony. I'll go sit up in Augusta if we're allowed to do that again. I think that until the people that are consuming the product start paying the price of it, that's what it's going to take. So if I'm contacting the manufacturer of the cat medicine and saying, I'm not going to buy your product because now I have to pay an extra $2 because you're over packaging it, they get enough of those phone calls, they'll start looking at it because they're going to lose business over it.
Yeah.
That's what it'll take. And there is not a state in the country yet that does this. Maine would be the first if it went through, but there are other countries that do this. I know that there's a strong presence in Germany, I believe it is, and in Canada, I think it's British Columbia that has this in a province-wide. It's a fee that they charge the manufacturers to pay for this through the towns, and then the subsidy, the money that they charge the manufacturer, goes back to the towns based on volume, so that the towns can pay to have it remove this trash.
Martha?
Do you happen to know the number of that bill?
It was LD 2104 in the 129th legislature.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any more questions on plastics and recycling on plastics? We're getting our way through this. Are you two okay?
I have a question.
Yep.
I don't know whether anybody here has an answer. Can the other plastics be turned into number 2 somehow?
I do not believe so because of the chemical composition of the plastic. And that's part of the reason why the number ones are so challenging. Some number ones have some chemicals that burn at one rate, and others have chemicals that burn hotter or colder. So to mix the two number ones together creates a product that can't be turned into new number ones or new whatever it is they're turning it into. So I don't believe that like a number 3 could be turned into a number 2 because of that.
Thank you.
And I'm not an expert on that, so I'm making an assumption on that.
Any other questions on plastics? Okay, we'll move on to composting then. Do all of the Lincoln County towns actively participate in the composting program that Lincoln County offers?
No. We pick up compost, we pick up food scraps at Bristol, Noblesboro, Waldoboro, and Wiscasset transfer stations. We collect leaves and food scraps at our facility. So anybody that wants to drop off a trailer full of leaves, they're welcome to do that. We have piles that we can accept that. Yard waste, anything that's too large, we're not able to take because it doesn't compost down fast enough and it remains woody on us. We then pick up horse manure at local farms to mix in. And that's where our materials come from. We also will pick up leaves at, I believe, we have an arrangement with Wiscasset transfer station. When we need more leaves, they collect them for us.
Are there any known obstacles to participation in the program?
We buy the bins, so the 50, I think the 55 gallon or 60 gallon rolling bins, we buy them and supply them to anybody, any transfer station that wants to collect food scraps. So the obstacles would be having the town decide they want to do it. When COVID started, we had a challenge getting food scraps. Obviously, people didn't want to be dealing with that at transfer stations, but food scraps represent something that some towns don't want to deal with. They don't want a bin full of rotting food parked on their site. So we don't force them. It's a voluntary process. we will support them if they choose to participate. And we will provide the bins to them and pick them up once they're full.
Can you sort of indicate how many tons or yards of compost you produce during each of the, is it 3 years the program's been in effect now, I think?
Oh, no, compost has been in
A long time, yeah.
much longer than that.
Oh, okay.
So we've been doing it for
I've been doing
quite
that.
some time. But for the past 3 years, compost is another estimate for us. We have to do our best to guess it because it's based on how many trucks of food scrap totes show up and how much horse manure we add and all of that. So in 2020, our estimate was 675 cubic yards. 2019 was 720 cubic yards, and 2018 was 675 also. Again, no scale means sometimes it's an eyeball estimate.
Could you just repeat those? Your voice goes in and out, at least on my end here. So could you repeat those 3 years with their cubic yards?
2020 was 675.
Mhm.
2019, 720. In 2018, 675.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I guess you charge $25 a cubic yard or $3 a bag for the compost you do produce.
We do.
Is that operation a net provider of funds to the operation, or is it a drain on the treasury of the operation?
Nothing we do is a net profit for us. There's a cost to everything, including compost. We're not making enough revenue to support the actual cost of it. Keep in mind, we're transporting these totes from transfer stations. Sometimes they'll go on our tin and glass run truck, but there's a transportation cost. We have manpower to turn the rows. We have manpower to fill the bags. Once the compost is finished, we have to screen it, the whole bit. What compost represents to us is a removal of waste from the waste stream that you're not paying a tipping fee on. If you think about how much your food scraps weigh, a lot of it is water, but a lot of your waste is food scraps. And if you can remove that from the waste stream and turn it into something else, then you're not paying a tipping fee on those food scraps. The fact that it makes a product that you can use for something else after the fact is a bonus.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm guessing to calculate your cost or your price of $25 a yard or $3 a bag, is that something you price to be competitive in the market based on what other people are selling it for?
No, when we tried to adjust prices to reflect market, there was no incentive for people to come buy their compost from us. So they stopped. It was like turning a light switch. When we raised the price of compost per yard, even the sales went off completely. So we put it back to $25 a yard because we don't want to stockpile compost. And we are looking at selling this compost as a benefit to people in Lincoln County. And the majority of the people that are buying it are from Lincoln County. So it's turning that product back into something that's a very reasonably priced product for folks.
Monica?
Have you ever done some chemical analyses of the compost in terms of if there are other chemicals in there other than what would be desirable in a garden? Have you done any tests on that?
We have not done tests on it, but there are folks from Hidden Valley Nature Center that have come out to look at the facility and the operations and look at the products that we're putting into that compost. And they have told us that it's about as close to organic as you can have without it being organic, without it going through the whole certification process. It's not something that we can't sell that term, but it's a good product.
Yeah, I've bought lots of bags. It's in my garden.
I picked up a bag today. I threw away 18 small buckets and I got my, I guess is it a half yard or Tim or how much is in that bag I pick up?
It's a
40 pounds.
40-pound bag, yes.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was frozen solid, but it's going in the garden as soon as it gets thawed out.
And as soon as we're able to get back rolling again, we will.
So everything you compost is basically returned to the towns that provided the compostable material to you then?
What do you mean return to the towns?
Well, I'm guessing that if towns aren't participating in the composting, I mean, we participate, so you send compost to us.
Yes. Right.
We buy it, but I mean, I'm guessing if you're not participating in the program, are you still eligible to buy the compost as a town?
We sell compost at the recycling center to anybody that shows up to buy it if we have it available.
Okay,
But the product that we bag for your town, we don't take to towns that don't recycle food scraps. So we're not bagging it up and taking pallets full to a transfer station that doesn't provide us food scraps. But if somebody from their town would want to come buy compost from us, we let them.
it's just that I know we've had shortages on and off during the course of the past year. We have here. We just couldn't get any. And we didn't understand why that was happening. Was there an operational issue? Were people buying it up and taking it away from us, or was there something else involved?
Well, that was us. So we were down one man for a while there, and it was really tough for us to take the time to bag. So when we did get the opportunity to bag, we did send your way.
The other thing we have to consider is how wet is the compost, because we can't bag compost when it's too wet. And in the spring, it's usually a very wet product for us as we have snow melt and spring rains.
Okay. Any questions on compost? We love the program. Glad you're doing it. Capital improvements. And this is the second to the last topic. Are there any machines that you currently lack or need to replace?
So we just sold one of our packer trucks that won't pass an inspection. And the cost to make the repairs to allow it to pass inspection were so great, it was more than what the truck is worth. We have another packer truck, so it's not like we're operating without one, but we are on the lookout for a replacement to the one we just sold. We just bought 2 new roll-on, roll-off trucks in the last 2 years. One in each of the successive years. So those are brand new. They're running wonderfully. Our baler's pretty old. We've had to replace the programming on it and the gearbox, and we had to do some major conveyor belt repairs to it. Other than that, I think that the biggest expense we're going to have for capital is going to be our parking lot, more than vehicles or equipment like that.
Yes.
Our parking lot's starting to crumble near the entrances, and it needs some work. We do have I don't know if you're familiar with the site, but we have an impound lot for the sheriff's office behind the building, and we have a radio tower. We need to fix the road that goes down to that, but that is something that will come out of our communications budget. We've budgeted for that actually last year, so we've reserved those funds so that we can repair that road. Even though it's at that facility, it's not out of that budget. But we have a very robust capital improvement plan countywide, and recycling is part of that plan. I just looked at it earlier today, and it's almost $200,000 in just the recycling department portion of the capital improvement plan. We fund it annually, and even though it's identified by department, it's also part of a whole. So it's not like there aren't funds there if, let's say the baler just completely quit and we had to buy a new baler for several $100,000. Even if I don't have those funds in the recycling portion of the capital improvement plan, I do have it countywide. What we're trying to do is make sure we don't ever have to bond. And if we can make sure that the capital improvement plan is forward thinking and includes all of our equipment, and we have an overall budget that is large enough to hit those big ticket items, then we can avoid the whole bonding issue and make sure that we're being responsible, planning forward.
And the last question under this topic is the MRF we talked about earlier. Do you have enough volume to justify the purchase of a MRF that would do a better job separating materials and getting us a better quality?
I have no idea. I've never been to a MRF. I don't know what kind of volume it would take to support one. I can't imagine that we would have enough volume based on what we're doing right now. And anything that we would, if we needed to add new customers to support a MRF, where am I going to get them? How many of them are part of the MRC that are going to go to coastal resources when that plant reopens? I don't know. I really don't have the answer to that.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on capital? All right, the last one is about pay-as-you-throw, and I think you indicated to me, Carrie, that we might be a little thin on the answers to these questions, but
I don't know who does pay-as-you-throw. We don't participate in any of the municipal waste portion of your transfer station operations. So I really don't know who does pay-as-you-throw.
okay.
I can tell you that Wiscasset doesn't, and I know that because that's where my trash goes.
All right. I was just interested in knowing whether the towns that have it are, whether or not they're doing a better job percentage-wise, recycling more or less. The data we looked at where you actually have numbers relating to specific towns, yeah, when they do it, their recycling rates go up. Which brings me to the last question, and that is, how close are we through LCR to the main goal of 50% recycling?
We're just a small portion of that. So maybe DEP would be able to answer part of that. When you posed the question to me, I had to actually go on the DEP website to see what this even meant. It's not something that we are tracking. It's not something that is part of our reporting process. The only thing that we are reporting to the state is compost, because we have a compost license. It's a requirement that towns have to report to the state what their recycling rates are.
What are we at, John? What, 20%? 30 now. Well, that's an improvement. Any other questions?
I just want to thank Carrie for taking the time and Tim on a night to participate. That's very kind of you.
Goes above and beyond. Really appreciate it.
If we can help you calculate that analysis for whether or not it's worth your while to stay with us versus trucking it to EcoMaine or anywhere else, I'd be happy to help you with that. Even if you want me to crunch the numbers on your weights and volumes for the past year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll work on it, see what comes up, what we get. I mean, it would be just interesting to know. Good feedback for you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know what the results are also.
Yes. No, we'd tell you, obviously. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll go on with the rest of the meeting here. It'll be boring for you, so we'll say good night and a big thank you for taking time to be with us.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Take care.
Okay. Wow, that was interesting. Minutes of the January meeting. They were sent out close to the beginning of this month. I sent them out again today. Did you have a chance to read them? And if so, is there a motion to approve them? Yes,
There is a motion to approve.
is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, the minutes are approved for January. Update on Municipal Review Committee. I just got a note from them today. They are Delta Thermo Energy, which is the intended purchaser of the assets of Coastal Resources of Maine, gave the bondholders a draft asset purchase agreement, which is now with the MRC for review. And we still haven't gotten the details of Delta Thermo's financing, how they're going to pay for the purchase, but we know they're working on it. And we're expecting to get something from them shortly on the details of that transaction. So the general message is the project is moving forward. We anticipate holding a town hall forum first half of March. That would be an MRC town hall forum. And everybody's invited, of course, that's a public meeting. So any questions about the MRC at this point? Everyone okay? All right. Transfer station budget, fiscal year 2022. John was able to finish that up and pass it out at the last meeting.
Yep.
Have there been any material changes to that, John?
Yes. There has been some typos, also changes. Gonna put in for a full-time guy instead of part-time guy. We haven't been able to keep anybody part-time. And it ends up being most of the time the highway department has to go out and work up there. So I did find a young fella. There was enough changes in the budget that we can swing him, so that's a change there. Pretty much everything else pretty much stayed the same. Julie's got the updated one, with all the numbers. That's basically it.
Okay. So the number I see is,
Do you have your budget book, Bob?
I do, I have it in front of me.
That's the updated budget. Actually, the change from part-time to full-time was not that bad at all. And it made a lot of sense to do that.
So I'm seeing your number is 683,142, Julie.
Yep.
It looks like John's official number was 669,531.
Yep.
And is that
Yep.
different, the additional guy, the full-time guy, pretty much?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And he's wonderful.
Good.
He was a part of our fire department, a local boy, Eli Johnson, and he's enjoying himself. And all reports are that he's extremely friendly. And I got a call today about him from a local resident in Waldoboro, an older lady who said that he was just so helpful and adorable. And she just thought he was the nicest thing, that such a young man was interested in saving the world.
We've talked from time to time over the years about, I remember when we did the ordinance, we had a position in that ordinance for a manager.
Yeah.
And in fact, we used to have a manager full-time up there until John, bless his heart, took on that job. Is there any further discussion or consideration of going back to the old way and actually having a manager up there?
This guy lives on Gitma, Woodrow. He took the manager's job over that way. They're paying him $85,000 a year.
85,000?
Yeah, just for the
Wow.
manager of that transfer station.
Is that at George's River?
No,
George,
no, it's at Rockport.
Rockport? Okay. Is that similar in size to us?
A little bit smaller.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They pay more for them than they pay for their town manager.
Exactly. It's true.
Wow. That's a lot of money. So if I'm reading this right, the 2020 budget was 515,997. The actual was 601, and I'm guessing that's COVID related, a lot of that tonnage increase. So the budget for 2021 was 592. Sorry, I'm getting my years mixed up here. For fiscal 21, the budget is 592 with an actual so far of 439. So we've got roughly 5 months left in our fiscal year. We're probably gonna come in over budget.
We'll see.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
And then the increase from fiscal 21 to fiscal 22 is about $91,000.
You know, this is like the ambulance department budget. Remember, when we add in for revenues, everything is tallied up on that.
I'm sorry, say that again.
This is like the ambulance department budget. You gotta remember that the revenues are all in here also.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, it's like an enterprise.
It's right.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I do suggest, though, just we need to be keeping this in mind, that we do need to start planning for the future, especially with personnel and what John has planned for the future, the improvements and personnel to fund that. And I am a big proponent of being prepared, and it's much better in an operating budget to pad it a little now, a little, and go up every year than make decisions. So I know, John, you have the next phase planned. If we're going to go to a driver or something like that in the future, to haul loads, we may want to start considering adding things into the budget, the operating budget now, even though we may not use that line item, but get us used to it, because you don't just want to do a big jump one year. So even if we're just putting a little bit away each year, that's the only thing when it comes to the budget, when it gets time to discuss it at the budget committee and select board level, that we really should consider is even putting in some type of money at that point, so that if we want to do something next year or the following year, there's money in there and we're not just shocking everybody at one time.
That is true.
I'm all for Toby Keith and shocking y'all, but that's in a song, not in a budget. I just want everybody to be aware.
So looking at, sorry, I'm turning pages, probably driving people who are looking at this crazy. The revenue side of it, there it is right there. So on the revenue side, Friendship at 14.84% is putting in 70,559. And Cushing at 19.77% is putting in 94,000.
Yep.
And the rest comes, the 310,908, 65.39% comes from Waldeboro.
Yes.
Are there any questions or comments on the budget?
Just my newness to this, if to get the ball rolling on starting to set aside money for future improvements to the transfer station, how would that, I mean, is that something that goes to the selectmen and they vote on that, or how does that?
Yeah, Julie's put together a capital program with John, and we have a capital budget for the transfer station. And we try to fund that every year. One of the items that's going to be fairly big, if they honor their obligation, is the state reimbursement for the landfill capping. They were going to pay 75% of that, were they not? Yeah. So at some point, we're going to get a check, and that's the transfer station's capital reserve or landfill.
Oh,
Julie's.
it's going to come over years. It's not going to be one check, Bob.
Oh.
It's going to come over years. I just actually finished that today. I'm just need John. John's gonna have to come in Monday morning and have a meeting with me about what that looks like. But it's not one check we receive. We're planning on getting that back over a 4 to 5 year period.
Wow.
Which is different, just so you guys realize, they changed a lot of this. Especially with, John, help me with this. Is it Brunswick that's closing?
Yes.
Brunswick is a huge landfill that's closing, and a good portion, and we're very lucky because we got done before Brunswick did. So where you used to get a full check, now it's paid quarterly, and it's going to be paid in installments over a couple of years. I think up to 4 years, our payment will be back.
Yeah. That's
A little different than when we started. And that's changes at the state level, not changes or anything we did. That's changes at the DEP level.
So does that put a potential crimp in some of the other capital items we were planning on taking care of? Is there going to be a capital issue here?
It crimps us a little. However, we need to have a serious conversation. Again, rates are under 2% to borrow. That may be something we want to consider. If there's something that you want to do, and I know we have lots of plans, but it does change some of the things that we're planning, but it's not like there isn't funding available. Also, John has sicked Max, our planner, our town planner, Maximilian. We call him Maximilian Worth a Billion because he's good at getting grants. So Max is on for any type of grant funding we can get. Anything like that is available. We love to spend other people's money through grant funding. So Max is on top of that. We'll keep an eye on it, but it is a little bit different than what we were told. John, correct me if I'm wrong, from the very beginning.
Right, very different. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge change, Julie.
And that is not something that, it's not like we gave you bad information. That truly is a change at the state level because their fund is dwindling.
Right.
And from what I understood, at least my interpretation was that when Brunswick decided to close, that changed a lot of things.
Okay. Any other questions or anything on the budget? All right.
Bob, I just wanted to what the
Yep.
number is again? Because I'm looking at the budget that I got the time that Cushing did its budget, and I thought you gave a slightly different number.
Yeah, that will be a different number from the one you got at the beginning of the month, Martha, because they've added a full-time guy.
Right, I heard that, but what is the number?
Oh, the number is, do I go with yours or do I go with the number is 683,142?
You go with the manager's request.
Yes,
And again, these are only estimates until the select board and our budget committee go through. We don't have a final budget number.
Okay, but what's the estimate for Cushing, if I might ask? I
sorry,
think you said it, but I couldn't catch it.
Bob, that should be towards the bottom of the page.
683,000.
No, that's not Cushing.
It's Cushing.
No, I hope not.
I could only wish it was Cushing.
Cushing is 90, let's say 94,000. Yeah, 94,000 for Cushing.
Okay, thank you.
And just so you're aware, a couple of things are driving a lot of this, and I'm sure it's for all the towns, but we still don't have a good number for revenue sharing, even though there was a meeting last Friday. And we also don't know what the federal government is going to contribute to towns, and that could affect all of us, but specifically with regard to Waldoboro. If the federal government stimulus does fund towns and cities, especially through the COVID relief, that could be a significant gain for us. So we don't really know that. And so say for some reason, we get some type of funding from the federal government, of course, Cushing would get that, Friendship would get that, and Waldoboro would get that. And we'd have to have that conversation about what portion of that should go to the transfer station. What we experienced through COVID was such an unusual uptick of people coming to the transfer station because they were home and had nothing to do but clean. That type of relief probably should be. So I would just urge Friendship and Cushing to bear that in mind, that one of the cost centers due to COVID that often goes overlooked is the transfer station. So if we do receive that funding, I think it would be a good idea for the Cushing and Friendship to whatever portion that you pay us, if you do get that COVID relief funding, a portion of that, based on how we apportion our billing to you, should come back to Waldoboro, because we really did experience a significant increase because of COVID. So just bear that in mind. I'm sure that's more of a conversation at a select board level, but I just wanted to throw that out there so everybody's aware of it.
But Julie, just to clarify, you're suggesting that if it does materialize and some of that federal money can be allocated to transfer station operations, that the money that comes in from the feds would go to the transfer station enterprise. Is that right?
A portion of it. So just like what we put in our budget, say, and I have to say, I don't have it in front of me because I am at home. But whatever portion that we use, the percentage we use for Cushing and for Friendship, if they were to get that stimulus money, I would at least ask that a portion of that stimulus goes to support the transfer station, because, we did experience part of why we'll be over budget is because of COVID. People are home, they're throwing away things much more. I mean, and John, it was one of those odd moments in the office when John's like, yeah, these numbers are up, and it's COVID related, and it is COVID related because everybody's been home. And what do you do when you're stuck at home? You throw things out. And we saw an uptick of that. And of course, less people are recycling during COVID. I think that's part of our issue of why some of our numbers are up. So I want to throw that out there. I think it's definitely more on select board level to have that discussion, but I just want you all to be aware, as far as budgeting goes, that if we do get that stimulus money, thought should be given to how that's apportioned through the transfer station.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
thanks.
welcome.
Thank you for
Anything more
that.
on the budget? Martha, did you have something?
No, I'm just glad to have heard Julie's thoughts on that. I can pass that on.
Credit cards at the transfer station. Have we made any progress, John?
I talked with Peg about it. She agreed with me with where the town does credit cards. She will be looking into it more and talking to you personally, because I told her boss says it doesn't work out like.
Well, it does. I found out that it does because, yes,
Oh, geez.
because that company that charges that discount
Yeah.
is allowed to do so.
Yeah.
It's allowed to add it to the bill
Mhm.
because it's a different category.
Yeah.
Under normal commercial credit card transactions, a company cannot add the credit card fee to the bill.
Yeah.
But because we're a municipality, we can do that.
Oh, you talked to Peg.
Yeah.
That is correct, because we're running it through the state of Maine.
Yeah, so it's perfectly legal, and yeah,
Oh.
so,
It is the same way that we run the credit cards for taxes, but there is a fee. We would be required to put a sign up that discloses the fee, but it is allowed.
okay. Anything else on credit cards? Pay as you throw? I just was bowled over when Ben said that he would support it this time around. That's huge, having the haulers on our side on this issue. Randy?
I've got a question. I didn't give the answers as far as pay as you throw. I wonder whether there's a website we could go to that would, where they've interviewed the towns that have pay as you throw, and the towns have responded as to whether the recycling has gone up, whether it's easier for them. I mean, whether there are pitfalls with it. I mean, is there something somewhere we can go to? Or would we have to call town by town? And I'm not, I could call town by town.
Read the report that we wrote in 2016. We interviewed towns that had made the switch. Monica and I and a bunch of other folks wrote a long report. And we interviewed the towns that had, some went back, and then they came back to pay as you throw. And they realized that it was far better.
Remember that now.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
you talked about-
that's
yes.
in the report.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there's no question that it increases recycling, and there's no question that it reduces the budget of the transfer station.
Right.
The issue that people have, and I've talked to Julie about this, is that you can't tell them it's going to impact their taxes. Because the money you free up from the transfer station budget is going to go into the general fund. And whether taxes are reduced or not is up to the individual select board in the individual town. So am I hitting that right, Julie? Or maybe she left us. Yeah, I know she had to cook dinner.
Yeah,
So-
she's not up there. She's
no,
gone.
she's gone. So that's been the conundrum.
Yeah.
But I'm getting the sense that at least those of us in this room and on the screen are willing to make another try at this. And try to convince people that it really is in everybody's interest to go this route. Monica?
I was wondering, I think I have a PDF. Is that what I sent you, Bob, of our presentation in 2016? Because I could pass that along to the committee members if they want to look at that again.
I
Absolutely.
would, yes.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay,
You
yeah,
have-
so I'll send it out. I'll just use the group address that, Bob, you send to me when you notify me of a meeting. Is
Yep.
that the list? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah, I'll do that in the next day or so, and you can review that.
Okay. Monica did the drawings, that are in the report. They're really
Yeah,
good.
yeah, now that yes,
Remember?
it's coming back.
I don't think Ben has seen that.
I had no.
No, make sure you send it to Ben.
Okay,
Okay. All right. So we got to gear up for that, and we'll talk about it at our next meeting. Maybe we will have made some progress on figuring out how we want to proceed with it. No public comments because, yes, Liz.
I don't think it's public, I think it's me. Could we get this agenda earlier than what we get?
It's me, it's not you. And I wasn't able to get it out until this afternoon, and I take
It's really
full
hard, it's
responsibility
really
for that.
hard
Yes,
for
you don't
me
never put all
not
lines
to
in.
get it until, I'd like to have it a day or two before, not
Right.
So
the day of.
And that's my fault, I apologize.
Okay.
Constructive criticism, well taken. You're very kind. You could have yelled at me, but you
No,
didn't.
no, no.
All right, so the date of the next meeting is the fourth Thursday in March. 1, 2, 3, 4. That puts us down to the 25th of March. Am I counting right? Yeah. 25th of March at 6 o'clock. And the items on the agenda, we can revisit the credit card. The budget will have been probably discussed and went through by then, I would think.
I don't know.
Okay.
Ours will be.
Sorry?
Ours will be, because
Yours
our
will be on,
town, our town meeting
voted
is
in.
like the 15th.
Right. And pay as you throw. Anything else you'd like to discuss at the next meeting? Okay? Are you okay, Martha, Monica?
thank you.
I didn't hear what Liz said. I heard her voice, but I didn't hear, did she just add it? Did she put an agenda item on or was
Yeah,
there?
the agenda items for next March 25th are credit card, budget, and pay as you throw.
Oh, just those, okay, I got them. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we can adjourn. Thank you, John.
Yep.
It's above and beyond to be here at 8 o'clock at night. Appreciate it. Yeah, you guys have had a long day. All righty, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? All righty, thank you, we're adjourned.
Good night.
Good night,
Night, Monica.
stay safe.
Night, Martha.
Bye.
Bye.
Careful.
Oh, there's something.
John, let me-
There now. Okay.
Let me finish this up, John,
I
before
was
you.
gonna go over there and see whether there's any difference. I haven't